joining us today. I am Bridget Lake with the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are here at our $15 minimum wage symposium. The Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce is here to serve as a platform for enhancing business and community interests in our region. And most importantly, we are a resource for your business, providing education, advocacy, and connections. I want to thank today's sponsor, Rockin' Brews. Rockin' Brews is proud to serve the community. Come rock out with us and tune into an endless soundtrack of your favorite classic rock songs. We're scratch-prepared comfort food, and our wide selection of craft brews fused together as one memorable dining experience for guests of all ages. Now, I want to jump right into the program as we are going to hear from businesses and associations, both big and small, to see how they're handling the change, the pros and cons and tips and tricks, and what you can do to help make the transition easier to the $15 minimum wage mandate. So, some of our speakers today: attorney John Morgan with Morgan & Morgan, Daniel Cavell with the National Small Business Association, Roger Lear with OrlandoJobs.com, Joan Harley with Cavallari Gourmet, Homaira Mirzai with Title Boxing Club, Bart Phillips with 419 Metal and Auto Recycling, Rick Bouffard with Tijuana Flats, Carmen Jordan Sr. with Friendly Confines, and Kinsley Elfand with Wilson & Company. Now, due to the large amount of panelists that we have today, we do ask that you keep your comments brief, no longer than 5 minutes, and then we will open it up to a discussion afterwards. As I said, this is a discussion, so if you're interested in speaking after our panelists today, asking questions, or giving your feedback, please type your name and your business in the chat box, and we will unmute you to speak after our panelists. Now, during the program today, please stay muted until we have those opportunities available. As I said, we're going to start right away, and our first speaker today, attorney John Morgan with Morgan & Morgan. How are you doing today? And let's make sure that we have him unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
All right. Well, I'm coming to you today from Maui, Hawaii. So aloha.
Aloha. Now, it sounds like you have been involved with the fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage increase, and were directly involved in getting the wage mandate on Florida's 2020 ballot. So tell us more on why you're so passionate about this and what you think the effects will be.
Well, can you see me?
We cannot see you, but we can hear you okay.
Why can't you see me?
I am not sure.
I don't know.
Let's make sure. Let me see.
I see some people. I feel like it's Hollywood Squares here.
I saw you earlier, so let me get Jordan working on this.
I think your tech person is not doing it right, because
let's make sure that Jordan can get that visual going. Give us just 1 second.
I have his video on and rolling. I'm not sure. Is there something possibly blocking your camera?
I've been doing these for a year now, so no.
And I did get that visual earlier. Maybe if we could just get the.
I saw where I was muted, and maybe I was also dimmed at the same time.
All right, so I just see the iPad Pro on the top. If you restart the visual.
See if that works.
That did not change anything.
Well.
Jordan, do you want to work on that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, I apologize about the visuals. We are going to see if we could get Jordan to get you back in here. And what I will do is once we see your visual come up, I will make sure that we get you speaking as soon as we get that picture ready. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. And we also have we have Daniel Cavell with the National Small Business Association. Now, Daniel, how are you doing today?
Hey, Bridget, Dan's waiting in the waiting room to be let in, he said.
I don't have anybody in the waiting room. Everybody's in that should be in.
Yeah, he said he just texted me, said he's trying to get in.
Okay,
I'm going to let you handle that, Jordan.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let me know when we need to move on to Dan. We are going to go to Roger Lear. Roger Lear, are you in the room? And can we get you on video? And
I'm hoping. Can you hear me?
we can hear you. Yes.
Hey, can you see me? That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with be on this panel and just talk a little bit about this $15 an hour minimum wage and really what it means for Central Florida. For anybody that's on the call that doesn't know Orlando Jobs, we've been just focusing on employers in Central Florida for 15 years now. And we were able to go out and speak to quite a few of the employers about, what their impact is. And what's so interesting about Central Florida is you have, the Disneys and Universals, but you have 75% of the businesses here are under 15 people, and so the impact is so different for everybody. But I think the one theme that came through it all was the fact that they're concerned, not about necessarily the wage increase, because it's over time, and there definitely was a need to increase the wage. I think the bigger challenge is what are they going to do with some of their employees that are already at $13, $14, $15 an hour that have worked there 4 and 5 years when newcomers come in and get that same wage and so forth. And I think was a really interesting point made by quite a few of the employers out there. The other one is just the first job out of school, right? We've all heard all about this, but you're 16, 17 years old and you walk right into a $15 an hour job without any skill sets. How will the employers actually recruit? Because the recruiting process is probably going to have to change, because they're going to have to figure out what for that extra, $5, $6 an hour, what they're paying, what other skill sets or what can they do to enhance that person's profitability to the bottom line of the company. At the end of the day, everybody, I believe that especially the smaller employers, all recognize that somewhere in their costs, they're going to have to build in a price increase or something else. And the other thing we heard was this pandemic has been an interesting visual when you think of all the companies that have furloughed people. And just like in the recession a few years ago, but they've furloughed people. They're the individuals that they have furloughed. We've been working on these smaller staffs. Even at Orlando Jobs, our staff is cut down by 50%. I don't know when we're going to start hiring again. I have no idea, but we're finding that with our people that we're paying now and our salaries, we're getting a lot more effective and efficient with less people. So I don't know what that means going forward, but it seems like all of this is crashing at the same time. Small business owners have a lot to digest, and I think in the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years, I think everybody will get really comfortable with where this is going. So that's what we saw, Bridget.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Roger. And yes, you are the co-founder and president of OrlandoJobs.com. And moving on just to our next symposium speaker on the $15 an hour minimum wage. Let's go back up to Daniel Cavell. Daniel, are you with us? And he is on the Leadership Council with the National Small Business Association.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I actually have I got an issue brief from the council that I'm on, specifically to the minimum wage itself. As far as small businesses go, one of the biggest topics that we looked at was COVID, and how the smaller businesses now are struggling to keep their doors closed and open and keep employees on the payroll. The NSBA took the position that, well, with the minimum wage, it presents a significant obstacle to ailing small businesses that are trying to survive the pandemic. And they feel it's going to cause a hardship for many small firms, particularly those in highly competitive industries. Could lead to reduced work hours, layoffs, stalled small business growth. Some of the things that we kind of focused in on throughout the discussions were minimum wage increases often exert upward pressure on all employees' pay, requiring an increase in overall prices. The Congressional Budget Office prognosticated that raising the minimum wage to $15 by 2025, up from $7.25, would increase the pay of at least 17 million people, but it also puts 1.3 million Americans out of work. Excuse me. Most small businesses that do pay minimum wage are typically in highly competitive industries with low profit margins, and an increase for any employees could be financially devastating. To offset higher employee wages, small businesses may need to raise their prices on the goods and services they sell. This can lead to decreased sales, decreased revenues, and lower profits. With less money to spend, small business owners may have to decrease or eliminate capital improvements, marketing, new hires, bonuses, debt service, production. And then according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 1.9% of hourly paid workers in the US are paid the federal minimum wage or below. And of that, the majority are young workers not supporting families. So point by point, this is the issue that the NSBA had with the minimum wage. And the solution, what they're looking at, is some states and cities have already legislated minimum wage to $15 per hour. Lawmakers should oppose the Raise to Wage Act, and slowly increase the wage up, I believe until 2025, but make it a state-by-state mandate without Congress involved. So that's really, those are the focal points that the NSBA really kind of drilled down on. And that came directly from the issue brief, which is available if anybody wants it.
Yeah, and that's some really interesting information, and I'm sure some of us will touch on that also. Thank you, Danielle. I really appreciate that. We are moving on, and I don't see Attorney John Morgan's video working yet, so we're going to move on.
I'm going to, by the way, April, I'm going to go ahead and log off. This is riveting, but sitting in the dark, I'm going to let you all go without me.
I truly apologize about the issue with the video. I know that I'd seen you on there earlier, so I'm not quite sure what the issue is with that. Did you want to speak your mind regarding the your feelings on this issue?
Not really. It's already been done. It's happening. Deal with it.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney John Morgan. And we are moving on to our next speaker. We have Joan Harley, the owner of Cavallari Gourmet, a premier meat market, deli, kitchen, and specialty grocery store. How are you doing today, Joan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am well. How about you guys?
Great. Thank you so much for asking. Now, being a small business owner, how will the $15 minimum wage increase affect you, and how are you going to handle the change?
Well, it will, it will have a great effect on me because I have, I'm very small. I have under 30 employees, and a lot of them are, young, right out of high school. And one of the main things that I can think of is I have the problem where the people have been here for a long time and have worked their way up and now are making, X amount of dollars. And these kids come in right out of high school and will be getting close to that amount when they start. And, I can see that being problematic. Besides the fact that I'm going to have to raise my prices in order to pay this.
I understand that. That's definitely a great point. And that is one that I've heard from a lot of other small businesses also. Thank you, Joan. We really appreciate that. Our next speaker, Homaira Mirzai, owner and operator of Title Boxing Club in Winter Park. How are you doing today? And what are the pros and cons that you see affecting your business, if any, from the $15 minimum wage?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this. I've given it some thought. I'm actually very concerned about it. I own a club here in Winter Park, and I own another club in Tampa. Today, currently, I don't pay any of my hourly employees under $11.25, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you were to ask the employees themselves for the work that they're being asked to do, they consider it pretty fair wage. The other thing is that the hourly sales desk jobs that I have, they're also commissionable jobs. So really, on the average, they're not making just $11 an hour, right? So they're also getting commission for every one of the sales. And I don't know if there's any details beyond, just pay everybody $15 an hour and it'll all be great. I don't know if there's other considerations given to people that have jobs that are commissionable jobs and things like that. But obviously, if I was forced to pay these people at $15 an hour, I certainly wouldn't be able to pay them the type of commission that I have, which directly will impact the amount of push they put in behind their job, right? They can earn a lot more money right now by hustling harder. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing for sure. And I just think it's all relative, and I think that's what's being lost. It's very relative to the work that we ask people to do. There are jobs, even if you've been in the work environment for 3 or 4 years, that should be paying $16, $17, $18 an hour. But there's jobs that really do not, the person that works and helps us as a secondary person wrap hands and clean the floors and things like that, that's not a $15 an hour job. And those are the things that are just going to get completely lost. Now, at the rate that I pay my people, I'm able to hire people that I pay $11 an hour to do the cleaning and stuff like that. But part of the reason my business is so successful, even coming out of COVID, is because I can afford to pay people like that to do the extreme amount of cleaning that we're doing so that people feel comfortable coming into a gym. So I just, I think that there's no way that there's not going to be an impact to most businesses coming out of this. Whether one way or the other, our businesses will suffer because not every job is designed to be a $15 an hour job.
Interesting aspect. I understand that. And I think that a lot of gyms would probably agree with you on that one. Next, we have Bart Phillips. He is the owner of 419 Metal and Auto Recycling. I know when I spoke to Bart last time, he said that there were some pros and cons to it regarding the $15 minimum wage increase. Bart, are you there? And tell us more about that.
Yes, I am here. Are you hearing me fine?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, I feel that it's not just the $15 an hour that's going to be our cost, because all our worker comp bills are going to go sky high, and all the other little things that's part of our payroll with a FICA will be going up. So this all adds up to some really big dollars. And this late in my career, I'm looking more towards retirement, so it's really not going to affect me as much as the young guy that's starting up and going to be a competitor. And what I really feel bad is that my children will not have the same opportunity of being an entrepreneur and being able to compete against the big companies out there. And that's one of the big things that is going to happen in the future is the small guys are going to wither away and the big companies will be able to outcompete everybody out there.
That is a really interesting point, Bart. I appreciate that. That's some good feedback. As I mentioned before, those that want to speak up after the symposium, after our panelists, please type in your name and your business in the chat box. And when we finish with our panelists, we will go and do an open discussion. So next we have, and thank you, Bart, for that, we have two different restaurants that are on the panel today. And as we've seen, COVID has had a crushing effect on our restaurants. So first, let's start with Rick Bouffard. He is the regional director with Tijuana Flats and a board member at the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber. Rick, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Good. You seem interested in speaking today. Give us an update on how this will deeply affect your business and talk to us about that and how you plan on handling the transition to $15 an hour.
Sure, of course. Yeah, obviously, as Bridget mentioned, I'm a pretty passionate person about this. My name is Rick. I'm the regional director for a Tijuana Flats franchisee in the Oviedo, Winter Springs, and Avalon area. And as Bridget mentioned, I sit on the board. I've been in the hospitality industry for more than 16 years in various roles since high school. My first job was at a local coffee shop in Winter Springs that hired me after school and on weekends. And now in my current role, I offer that same first job experience to our community. Tijuana Flats is a first job for most. We develop young adults, teach them baseline for responsibility, teamwork, personal success that a lot of them carry through college and to their future careers. The past year has been really hard on the hospitality industry in general, to say the least. A year ago, we were kind of forced to shut down in-store business and convert to a to-go only model. We adjusted as best we could, but the social impact of the requirements caused a big strain on the industry. We were called essential and energized by the community's rally for the business, but unfortunately, that was fairly short-lived. We saw a lot of frustration from guests find their way in the storefronts in the form of requirements of masks, and we were asked to enforce the policy even though we're not civil servants. Despite that, we rallied, and we've always prided ourselves on guest service and being an employee-first company. But the $15 minimum wage dramatically reduces what we're known most for, and that's opportunity, which is one of our primary core values. We're a company that offers quality, never frozen food at a reasonable price with over-the-top guest service, but as we see the minimum wage increase each year, we'll have to adjust our model to make the wage realistic. It's not realistic to pass that cost on to our guests in the form of a dramatic price increase. As we see, it would eliminate our primary customer basis, which means most of the cost savings has to come from operations, specifically labor. I think I speak for most restaurants when I say the labor is one of the most expensive and impactful expenses on a restaurant. And there are jobs restaurants cannot just be replaced with computers, they require people. We've never had trash cans in our dining room. It's our pleasure to bus tables for you, but not anymore. If you need a refill, stay seated. We'll be right there. Grab a drink for you. Not anymore. You'll have to get up and get your own drink. After ordering, you can visit Famous Hot Bar, grab a seat, and a friendly employee will bring you out your food. Not anymore. You'll have to get up and get your own food when we call your name. We just won't be able to afford the staff in the front to be able to do those things. Because as I said, computers can't replace cooks. We need physical people in the kitchen to be able to do that. We're currently revamping our curbside system to promote automated responses to the guests using geofencing. That will eliminate the cashiers having to correspond with the guest or figure out who's coming next. We're investing in ordering kiosks, allowing the guests to place their own orders and eliminate the cashiers. Guests will have to get up and get their own food, throw away their own trash. No need for employees to be in the dining room giving out refills or bussing tables. Little things that Tijuana Flats are known for. And operational changes are part of the world and nothing that we're not constantly evaluating or willing to implement. As Roger mentioned earlier, what will affect the industry most is the elimination of the first-time job. Most will not be able to pay $15 an hour to a first-time kid looking for a few hours after school to earn money on the weekend. If you're applying to be a cook, if you've never cooked before, sorry, don't plan on a 6-week training course at $15 an hour while we have former restaurant employees that are laid off from similar areas looking for jobs in the market. The business model is going to change, but so will the opportunity that we give to our employees. The ability for the employees to learn new tasks, move to different levels, and be reduced along with their positions as salary managers are asked to take on more and more responsibilities from the hourlies. Hospitality positions have had a stressful year with the unreal and aggressive expectations, and it's about to get even more difficult than we've ever encountered. Marketing will also need to be an aggressive change. Restaurants are always popping up, and third-party delivery systems like Uber Eats and DoorDash have expanded the ability for storefronts to be as small or non-existent as necessary. And while that's a great revenue stream, it requires us to stay on the forefront of the customer's mind. Social media, radio, television commercials, direct mail, etc. We as restaurants are always looking for ways to stand out to our guests, whether it's a 30-second spot between songs on Pandora or getting a public figure to stand around in a meat sweatsuit on the news. The goal for us is to be relevant and stand out. And as we change our practices to conform to a $15 minimum wage, we have to not only be unable to offer opportunity to the workforce, but we'll struggle to stand out in the sea of competition. But I guess we'll just have to deal with it.
That was a lot of information. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm sure we're going to be touching on some of those things during our discussion portion of this. So thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. And next, our speaker, we have Carmen Jordan Sr., the owner and CEO of Friendly Confines. How are you doing today? And how is the $15 minimum wage going to be affecting you? I'm sure you probably have some similar feedback as Rick does.
Yes, Rick made some great points. I mean, he's a little bit different business than we are, as far as he's more of a fast casual. So we're a full service, come in, sit down, dine. We have bartenders, we have servers, and we have a huge kitchen staff. Most of our kitchen employees now are making in the $11, $12, $13 an hour range. But when we start them, normally they're in the $10 to $10.50 an hour range. A big concern would be, what do we do with these people that have been 5 to 10 year employees that are making, even if they're making 15, 16, 17, it's not fair to them to bring people in to step on their toes making the same amount of money. Like I said, we're a small mom and pop. We've got 3 restaurants here in Central Florida that are our own. We are getting into franchising now, so we do have a franchise out in the Metro West area. We've got 100+ employees, and our employee payroll right now goes to about 33 to 36% of our net sales. So you're increasing to $15 an hour, and I'm not 100% sure where that takes the bartender server wage. Someone told me in the $11.50 plus tips range. So that's another huge question we would need answered before this goes. But the way we look at it right now, with 100+ employees, we have a payroll of around $50,000 a week. We'll probably go up around, I'd say about 30% by having to bring on that $15 an hour and having to put servers and bartenders up to 11 plus tip. You're gonna have servers and bartenders making more money than the owners and the managers, and if that's not happening already. But our industry, it's been suffering because of this whole pandemic thing, and we're trying to bounce back now. So this certainly isn't the time to initiate a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, I understand the state of Florida has already voted it in, and it starts slowly in Florida by going up to $11 on September 30th, $11, and then the server wage also goes up. It's just going to be hard. But if the federal comes in and says, hey, immediately $15 an hour, then we're kind of set it back to like, what are we going to do? Are you going to come into my sports bars and spend $20 on a hamburger? It's a tough situation for anybody. And I think the restaurant industry, the small end restaurant industry like ourselves, is going to be hit the hardest.
Yes, I could definitely understand that, Carmen. I appreciate your input, and I agree. That's why we wanted to have both of you on here, is because we actually, even though you guys are in the same industry, definitely have some differences between you guys. Our last speaker today is Kinsley Elfand. She's an accountant with Wilson & Company and treasurer for the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber Board of Directors. How are you doing today?
I'm unmuting. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Yay. Okay. I'm good. How are you, Bridget?
I'm good. So how can you tell us about the $15 minimum wage when it comes to the construction industry?
Yeah, so it's interesting. For Wilson & Company as a whole, it doesn't have an impact on our staff, but where it's going to have an impact is the subcontractors that work for us. They are going to, they have a lot of laborers, vocational, specific to concrete or electricians or whatever. when they have to raise those prices to pay those people $15 an hour, obviously their bids to us are going to go up, which means our bids to owners are going to go up, which means it's going to cost more to build stuff. So, and specifically in our industry, there's a lot of time and a half, a lot of overtime. So that becomes an even bigger number really quickly, especially on night and weekend work when we're doing stuff fast. And when we hire temp labor for certain things. So all of that will have an impact going forward, and certainly on the types of businesses that we're building. So if we're doing a restaurant build out, it's going to cost more. And then just as our restaurant folks have said, they're already feeling the impact. So if they go to build one, it's going to cost more to build it. They have more to make up to be able to, make up for what they spent building it. It's just a, vicious cycle basically. So, we do a lot of work for the government, and they have Davis-Bacon wage rates. So they have set rates for certain things that we have to do. And so those jobs are always more because they have to pay certain amounts that aren't near minimum wage. They're even higher. So we see the effect on those jobs, and it looks like we're going to see it now pretty much across the board.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, across the board. I mean, this is going to be, from what I understand, a slow increase, but there's definitely concerns. So we're going to start now since we've covered all of our panelists, opening this up so that everybody can either, if they had a question, and I know that I already have some questions, if you wanted to speak to anyone or want to discuss anything, now we're going to be opening it up. So I'm going to go to our chats, and I know first I had a couple of questions from Randy Perry, who is the board chair at the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber and also with Metro Realty. He said, for those employers that are paying less than the future minimum wage, why are your employees working? Do they need that wage to feed their family? Are they getting SNAP assistance from the federal government? So that's a question. If anybody wants to chime in on that, who wants to cover that one? Because I know that even when you're starting at a job, I started at under $15 an hour. And I made it work. So Rick, go ahead. I know that you wanted to chime in on that one.
Sure. Yeah. And I think I saw a question from Gene Vinsmith there too about this. The $15 minimum wage, and I know it's been said plenty before this made it to the ballots. It's not designed to be an entry-level wage. Minimum wage is designed to be an entry workforce wage that is levied based on merit, experience, tenure, other things, promotions. For instance, in my business model, you have an entry-level position, and we have different hierarchies within that. Trainers, shift leads, turnkeys, kitchen managers, prep cooks, different things in different levels that allow you to move up in the industry and earn more money. By making a $15 the minimum wage, again, without passing that cost on directly to the consumer, we're forced to pay everybody the same wage regardless of the work ethic or the job, and it takes away the ability to move people into those higher positions based on their performance.
And Randy, I see that you're unmuted. Is there any feedback that you wanted to give on that now that Rick has gone over that?
Yeah, Rick and any other restaurateurs here, I assume that your cooks, for instance, are not what I would consider the entry level. They're not high school kids getting in there and cooking. I could be wrong. I would assume, again, that they're trying to feed their family. And my question, I guess, is this their only job? Are they working multiple jobs? Are they qualifying for food stamps? Have you asked that question of them?
Yeah, and yes, we have a wide range of people that work for us in different levels. But yeah, a lot of our cooks are entry level. It's their first job. We're teaching them how to cook and how to do things on their own and work with their hands. We do have some seasoned personnel, but a lot of times for us, at least, I don't know if it's the same for Friendly Confines, but for us, we're taking young people and teaching them these trades to kind of move up and go on and do bigger and better things than just be a cook one day. But a lot of them that have families, they look for other opportunities in the company to move in, and that's where management and turnkeys and other responsibilities that pay a higher wage allow us to be able to give those opportunities to our current employees.
Thank you, Rick. And Carm, do you have anything to add to that?
No, he's absolutely right. Most of our key people in our kitchens have started out work their way up through the system. Once they hit that point, we try to put them on a salary. We try to get them their 50 hours a week. So they're making decent money. They're making, in most cases, over the $15 an hour. But what I'm saying is now when I got to hire that newbie in that these guys are supposed to be training at that $15 an hour, that just don't seem fair. So at what point do I quit handing out money to people just to, you know, they're living comfortably. Let's say that my kitchen managers, my assistant managers, my full-time salaried cooks are living comfortably, but it ain't fair to them that we got to bring people in at what they work maybe 4 or 5 years to get to that $15 point.
We promote from within, you know, that's always been our model.
By the way, this is Kimberly. She heads up our payroll and our HR department. Figured I'd have her in here just in case we get some.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Thank you, Kim, also. We're going to move on to Gary Ballinoff. He is a realtor that had a couple of comments. Gary, can you unmute yourself and ask your go ahead and speak?
Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, one of the things, I've been a company owner for 37 years, so I've seen the minimum wage increase slightly over that time, but not enough to keep hungry people going. So what's happened is you really have a choice. If you are in a low paying wage, under 15, really under 10, 12, you probably have 2 jobs. Being in real estate means that we have probably half of the people who are realtors, not just licensees, but realtors who are working a second job. They can't make enough money in their bartending job, so they're bartenders by night and realtors by day, or they're servers by night and realtors by day, or vice versa. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people are trying to make a living, but what I've found over all my time doing it, I've never had 2 jobs. I worked one job really hard and it started to work, and then it got better and better and better. And I think what we've done in our whole economy now, nationwide, it's not Florida, but Florida is especially subject to it because we have such a high number of people in the service industries, is that the number one question I get, or the number one answer I get when I ask business owners, and I'll ask all of you, what is the hardest challenge in your business? It's not wages. It's, you know, some of it is rent payments, which are going up dramatically as well. You know, I'll comment on commercial landlords and how easy it is to work with them. Snicker. But anyway, one of the things that is a problem is keeping and hiring good people. So where do you find these people? I mean, they're coming out of school, they want a job, and most of you are willing to train these people to do it, but it's very hard to find diligent people to work for the kind of wages that most of us can pay. So it becomes difficult. And what I've seen happen over time is that people leave to go to other high-paying jobs, go back to Seminole State or UCF or whatever, get, you know, retrained and become an engineer or a scientist or a doctor or a nurse. And all of a sudden they start getting really good wages. And then you're forced to pay somebody that's right off, you know, the street, basically with no experience, to be able to do whatever you're doing. So it's just an ongoing challenge. And I'm interested to see if this is continuing, because that's what I'm seeing right now, is it's hard to find the right person to fit into that job, and then paying them a higher and higher amount gets to the point where can you even keep the business open? I sold my company after 20 years because it just wasn't worth doing, and I could make more selling houses than I could on running a big office.
And I've also heard, just so you know, Gary, same thing, and is a lot of employers from the smaller businesses have used paying more than the minimum wage as a competitive advantage in order to keep better employees. And that has been a tool for them to be able to maintain better employees, harder working ones that are really, is the concern that was stated before is, you know, paying somebody $15 an hour, but not getting the work ethic that, you know, you're paying for. And that has been a concern also.
And what was said earlier, I might add to that, what was said earlier by a couple of the panelists is absolutely accurate, in the sense that you want to get these good people and you want to reward them and you want to give them training and so on. But if you're a small business, you can only do so much of that before you either ramp it up big time and start charging more for your services or your products or whatever, or you stay small, or you sell to a bigger competitor. And that's what we're seeing in terms of consolidation of whole industries where, you know, the so-called mom and pop, like, you know, most of us are not Amazon, so we can't do that. But you'll see the large restaurant chain buy out somebody, or the large, you know, clothing store or whatever else, just buy up whatever's there.
Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate that. I believe everyone can see the comments here. I'm going to read them pretty quickly. Just for reference, this is from Jean Van Smith. Florida's current minimum wage is $8.56 an hour. And she was talking about that would give you an approximately $1,438 per month before taxes. And then rent in Seminole County is, you know, about $1,000 a month. And then you think about other expenses above that. Someone had mentioned that they started at $4.25 an hour, but that was back in 1979. And then starting at, Phil Capro said, I started at $3.35 an hour at my first job. I was in high school. I imagine that my kids will not have the ability to easily get those coveted first jobs due to the employers here anticipate that they will forego the younger generation to help ensure that those who need the jobs the most will get them. If they can't get jobs, then the same population that is looking for help will find themselves out of work altogether. And now I'm going to let Charlie Fish speak on something. Charlie, can you unmute yourself? And I know that you wanted to speak on one of the topics. Go ahead, Charlie.
Along with the two restaurant franchisees that are on here too, you spoke to it. It totally eliminates the ability to hire 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, sometimes 18-year-olds, because what the federal government puts in place for work environment requirements, there are some things those team members cannot do. And when they can't do something, it eliminates the ability to pay them. So, but I can defer some of that to people as long as I have the staff. Additionally, every time one of these things happens, we drive up the prices for everybody. And I'll be okay, honestly, but like some were saying, some of these mom and pop places, they get bought up by bigger franchises. And then that franchise, like a Chick-fil-A, can increase their prices because now they're almost like a monopoly. And that doesn't help anyone else out. My biggest concern with the minimum wage is what does it do to people with fixed incomes, those that are retired? When you raise the consumer price index on somebody like that, it drives them into poverty faster. For me, I don't pay anyone in my restaurant minimum wage. We start at $10 an hour. If you can make $10 an hour, that's great. The other thing that some of the other franchises talked about was it's not, listen, I don't have adults making less than the $15. If they're mom and dad and they're working hard in my restaurant, they make that. When you drive minimum wage up artificially, like we're going to do with staff that's 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 22 and 23-year-olds working through college. The ability to pay mom and pop or mom and dad a fair wage drives them down to the minimum wage now. So maybe they were making $15, $16, $17 an hour with minimum wage at $8. But when we drive that up, I can't give them additional money. I have to see what my expenses are. And all of a sudden, they are now at a minimum wage or near it. And they have to buy things at a new minimum wage level, taking away their buying power significantly. And that's my biggest concern. I'm disappointed John Morgan's not here to hear some of this stuff. I mean, the way he logged out and just telling people to deal with it it's callous at most. And that's disappointing to hear that from somebody. I mean, it would have been, if people really cared about this, they would have set it up in such a way that allowed 15-year-olds to bag groceries at Publix, 16 and 17-year-olds to learn how to do standard jobs and learn how to make good decisions in life learn how to balance a checkbook if they still do that, and then move forward from that standpoint. And that some of that just goes away. And then like you're saying, you're talking about the engineers, you soon have people that have had no job experience because no one was willing to pay them the minimum because they weren't old enough to do the things. And that's my biggest concern. So I appreciate everything I heard here.
Thank you so much, Charlie. And Charlie Fish is with Chick-fil-A. So we appreciate you coming in and listening to this. And a lot of it is also, what are some of the ways that people are handling it? And anyone here can chime in on that, because it will gradually be going up $1 per year. And when that does happen, how is your business going to be handling that? I know that I've spoken with Palm Tree Tech Center, which is right down the street from the Chamber of Commerce, and they had mentioned that those will be passed on to the consumer. But then we've also had some restaurants who are saying, how do you pass that on to the consumer when nobody's going to buy a $20, $30 burger? So there's a lot of things of how are you guys going to be handling, if you're a business owner, the wage increase as it does increase. So if people do want to chime in on that, I know that I have some comments here. I see that Sarah Corman from Long Crazy Maintenance is on here. Sarah, did you want to speak in and chime in?
Hey, Britt, thank you. One of the things we've been talking about too is, how do we attract talent, in a landscape industry where it's tough. It's hard work out there. And in the summertime here in Florida, these guys are working their butts off. And most of our guys are making over $10 an hour now. But when they can get a cushy job at Publix, bagging groceries for the same amount, how do we keep ourselves competitive? And so that's something that we've been really focusing on, benefits-wise, work-life balance, and giving something back to our employees while staying competitive in the per hour category. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. I mean, and we've talked about increasing rates, and what that does to our business is puts us at a little less competitive advantage against some of our competitors that may not increase their per hour rates. So lots to think about for our industry as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak about the $15 minimum wage, whether it's a concern, whether it's a question for somebody that has already mentioned something? I'm opening it up to anyone if you just want to unmute yourself and chime in.
Hey, Bridget.
Yes.
I have a question for Rick.
Go ahead.
So, as a consumer for Tijuana Flats coming in, I'm hearing the unintended costs that are going to be to the public to retrain people like me what to think now when I go to these restaurants, to know that there's going to be a delay, and because I'm dealing with that, how to retrain the public. So there seems to be even an additional cost that's not even being talked about right now, and I'm just wondering how you're rebranding. I wrote a few things you said, Rick. Goal is to be relevant, to stand out. Well, how can you do that if your people aren't coming to the table asking an extra drink? You'll greatly decrease opportunity. So how much does the cost and impact you to retrain people like me, where I have a certain level of service experience from you, and now it's going to change?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that we're evaluating as it goes. And while this is a terrible thing for our industry, thank God that it's spread out over 5 years, where we can make sure this is a slow burn. We already are trying to retrain in the course of trying to evaluate some of the minimalized impacts. For instance, we bus your tables for you. The goal is that you never get out of your seat. But as we put trash cans strategically in the dining rooms to allow you to bus your own tables, that's something that can be overlooked, and over time, gradually, we can add other steps that eliminate small scale things. Mobile ordering kiosks. I know McDonald's and some local restaurants have a couple of those around the area. So those are socially acceptable things that are in other restaurants. So it doesn't look like we're making dramatic changes. It makes it look like we're doing upgrades. The unfortunate thing is that those upgrades are eliminating jobs. So our goal is to make these upgrades in the form of technology, in the form of different revenue streams like third party or curbside, in a way that allow us to increase our business and increase our customer basis, while reducing the costs associated with having to have actual employees do that. But yeah, understanding that that things will change is our biggest struggle that we have right now.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. And I know that Phil Capra wanted to chime in. Phil, are you able to chime in right now?
I am, thank you. Wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is going to be one of our topics of conversation when we get up to Tallahassee in April. And so it is very important. It's great that everyone's here today, and I love the turnout, but it's so important to have your voices heard. So if you haven't signed up for Capital Connections yet, it's April 6th and 7th, and I think we have 4 days left to register. But that's where we talk to our state legislators and talk to the people that make the direct impact. And it's important because what many people don't realize is that it's not going to stop at $15 an hour. There's a perennial increase built in to the amendment. What really needs to happen is there probably needs to be a move to repeal the change and let people go in and do it with some better sense and better logic. Like Carmen mentioned earlier, maybe you carve out, or maybe it was Rick, you carve out a certain level of wage for those true entry level jobs. And that allows you all to continue sustainability, because as everything else goes up, so does the cost of the poverty line.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Bridget.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I weigh in from the nonprofit side? I was hoping Hope Helps or Sharing Center would be one of the speakers, but because we don't normally do a lot of social services. But I mean, it is really concerning to me that someone could work 40 hours a week and earn about $1,400 a month. And that's where we do have, and it's not only high school kids earning minimum wage, they're absolutely working adults with families who still earn minimum wage. And we see it all the times in the schools. Those are the kids on free lunch. Those are the kids taking home food on the weekends. Those are the kids who, don't do their homework at night because their parents are working 2 jobs. So it's not a good system, and we're paying for it one way or the other, whether it's through food stamps, Medicaid, because if you're earning $8.56 an hour, you're going to be on all those. What I would hope with the minimum wage increase, because it is gradual, is that businesses would see a decrease in the cost to train people. So where Rick was saying it takes them, 6 weeks to train a chef, well, we have culinary programs in high school. So maybe now, instead of getting someone and having to train them for 6 weeks and basically pay them to learn, you're able to recruit an 18-year-old out of high school from a robust culinary program who can go straight to work and be ready to go. And I would hope that businesses would work with the school district to cut back, hopefully, on some of your training time, whether it's, work answering phones. We have all the Microsoft certifications. We have all the culinary. To eliminate some of those costs. Because I can tell you at my job, when we have turnover, that's a huge expense to me to hire somebody and have to train them for a month. So I always lean on, let's pay people fair wages. In the long run, it saves money to have more competent people, and we don't have the turnover, which it sounds like a lot of restaurants and things have right now. So just from the nonprofit side, we absolutely see working class adults making minimum wage, and it has a huge impact on their children and on their families and what they're able to offer to their families and balance of life. So just since we didn't really hear from that side.
And thank you, Jean. I appreciate that. Is there anyone who here is on maybe a nonprofit board that also wants to chime in, or the CEO of a nonprofit? No.
So if I can speak maybe for Hope, I'm on their Interfaith Council, and one of the things that we see a lot is after through the pandemic, and now after, really, I mean, when people are getting shots and everything else, there's still a lot of people who are middle class workers who are making just barely $14, $15 an hour, who cannot afford to live here. There aren't enough homes available for sale or rent in Oviedo Winter Springs for under $1,700 a month. And what was just mentioned as far as the cost of a rental property. No, there aren't any $1,000 a month rentals. There aren't any $1,000 a month homes. So you have to make way more than $15 an hour. And what's happening is, even with 2 incomes, working spouses, both making $15 an hour, have a hard time living here. So to get workers in Oviedo area businesses, they're going to have to live elsewhere. They're going to have to live further and further out. This is what's happened in major cities all over the country. You can't live in New York City, you can't live in Manhattan. you've got to live way out in the countryside to be able to get a home and then commute in for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. That's happened in California. It's happened in Chicago area, any big city. And now Orlando's gotten that way too. And I would say, as a consumer also of food, I like food. I like to support all of the restaurants. I applaud our mayor for eating at every single one of the restaurants here at least once over, a 2-year period. It took a while to be able to get to everybody, but the problem is I will pay more for good food. Service is great, but honest to God, Rick, if I have to put my own trash away, I'm willing to do it. And if you can keep it at least halfway reasonable for me to go in and serve myself and go through the line and pick up a tray and do whatever I have to do, as long as the food is tasty at the end of the line, I come back. If it's not tasty at the end of the line, bye-bye now. And that's where we're going to see restaurants completely going out of business. So you have to have good workers in the kitchen more than anything else. And if you have fewer people up front, c'est la vie.
Thank you so much. And let me also mention, and thank you, Phil, for mentioning this, is we do have our Capital Connection trip. Every year we go to Tallahassee and make sure that we advocate for our businesses. And with that, if anybody is interested in attending, the reason that we had this symposium ahead of that is because we wanted to make sure that we were getting feedback from our businesses and our community to see what was going on with different areas. And I did have a question what is the penalty for not paying minimum wage? I don't know that answer off the top of my head. Maybe someone here does know that. I don't know if they will have a penalty.
You can get sued. You'll get sued for it from the state. The state would come after you, and then you'd have to pay the penalties of you'd have to pay the interest and a state penalty for not paying a minimum wage that's mandated by law. So you'd be in trouble for it.
Additionally, there are law firms like Morgan & Morgan, happens to be one of them, that has an entire department dedicated to addressing wage and labor shortages.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. I do want to remind everyone that if you do have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us. My email is bridget@oviedo-wintersprings.org. Also, we have Taste of Oviedo coming up on March 27th at Oviedo Mall from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So make sure to come out and have some fun, but have fun safely. Bring those masks. So we'll see you there, and thank you everyone for joining us.